All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. Good morning to this beautiful Sunday morning where we have a lot of light coming down on us. Some a little bit overheating. So I hope that we can also cool down a little bit. um, and for us to start our service, um, Gina, can you do the opening prayer, sister?
Love to. Let us close our eyes. And in this moment, let us imagine that we are seeing the sun, and the sun is the face of God in this moment. And we are so happy to say, Good morning, Heavenly Father. Let us say hello to Jesus and all of the good mentors that help surround us and protect us and guide us. And let us say hello to each other from this beautiful space of love. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for allowing us to come together this morning. And in your name, we hope and pray that we understand our lesson today, that we embrace this lesson that we're about to learn today, and that we keep this with this throughout the day, the week, and may we continue to pray and be thankful and in gratitude for all that you have blessed us with, from the air to the trees to each other and to the divine love that is the blue for all of us. And it's in your name we humbly ask, Father, that you bless the opening of our service today. Thank you so much. So be it.
Thank you, sister. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this beautiful Sunday morning to Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center. For those who don't know us, we are a non-denominational organization, but we are also members of the United States Spiritist Federation. So our beliefs are around scientific, philosophical, and religious principles of Spiritism. So we respect all spiritual traditions, we study all of them, and this is a safe space for you to bring your questions, for you to discuss. We are all here studying and growing as we go. One thing that is really important that was taught not only by Emmanuel, but throughout spirits and even Jesus, is that knowledge and love are the two wings for our spiritual evolution, for our spiritual awakening. So you will see that the first part of the service, we always have a speaker that is going to share with us some understanding. And in about a moment, I will share with you who is going to be our speaker. But what I would like to remind us is that your participation is really important. So practice the active listening. So write down those things that might be important for you to remember and to reflect along the week, because your mentor is already working with you for you to download the messages that you need for you to reflect. So while the spirituality does their part, it is important that we do ours. And then the second part of the service, it's a hands-on healing where we are all going to receive passes from the mentors. It is important that you bring a cup of water or a bottle of water, because the water is going to be magnetized with whatever is necessary for us to keep up this beautiful journey of life. So make sure that you have your bottle of water with you. Also, if you want to bring someone for vibration, someone that you know that might be in need of some energetic support, just write down the names of those who come into your mind, or think about them at the second part, because they will also be assisted. I would like to share with you a couple of services that we are having. So first is the daily prayer. So we know that it is in giving that we receive. St. Francis of Assisi that said that. And we invite everybody to join us at 6 p.m. Pacific time, so then we can all vibrate to planet Earth love and healing that not only goes but also come to us. So from Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. at this Zoom link, and every Saturday at 11:30 a.m. BSH Zoom link. Join us, 15, 20 minutes. We all benefit from this gathering. We also have fraternal counseling, which is by appointment only, and you will talk with one of BSH mediums that have an open heart to hear you, to talk. Even if you just want some prayer together, it's always good. So feel free to text us or send a message on our chat box or an email to BSH info@bshcenter.org, and we will be happy to talk to you. Now, classes. So we still are running the Inner Transformation class, which is an amazing meeting that we have. And I just wanted to remind us, also Emmanuel said in the book Thought and Life, evolution demands that we develop new habits, that we detach ourselves from lower forms and walk towards higher stages of existence. And we know that detaching old habits is not an easy task. So join us for us to understand how the high spirituality help us to be successful in this journey. So this class is an offering from BSH in collaboration with Divine Light every first and third Tuesdays of the month from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And our sister Sunshine Beck is the one leading us in this path. Beautiful place. I'm going to share the link with you in our chat. We are still running the study with the Spirit's book, which was the first book of Allan Kardec's series that unveils incredible details from the spiritual world through more than 1,000 questions. So every Thursday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., also in this Zoom link with our sister Duska. An amazing study, amazing moment for us to discuss. Everybody's welcome to join us. We also have every Thursday from 7:40, I would say, Sunshine, 7:40, 7:35, right? 7:35 to 8, the study of the book Happy Life, which is a book that Joana de Angelis wrote through Divaldo Franco with short messages, short but so deep messages. Everybody's welcome to join us. This is available through Divine Light and BSH as well. So I will share with you the link. And we have a Spiritism for the Youth, which is a beautiful and special way of bringing Jesus's messages to our children. So let us support this next generation in this path. Feel free to share with your friends. This is every second and fourth Sunday of each month from 8:30 to 9:30, right before this service with our brother Brian Abiel. And last but definitely not least, we have the Spirit's teaching of the Gospel according to Spiritism. So if you have the Gospel, you know that at the end of each chapter, we have the explanation from the Spirits about that specific chapter. So we do that study with our dearest sister Sunshine every Sunday, 6 p.m. through Divine Light. In collaboration with BSH, and you can find this study in all the YouTube, Facebook links, and I'll be happy to post them as well. So a lot of opportunities for us to be together. Just feel free to join us anytime, any moment. We are happy to be together. And with no more overdue, allow me to introduce our dearest sister, Sunshine Beck, which will be the one sharing with us today. And the topic is, do you want to heal? I think that we have a lot of things for us to heal, also not only in the physical level, but also in the mental, emotional level. So let us hear from her. And for those who still don't know Sunshine, she has been a seeker all of her life, which culminated in her finding her spiritual home through Spiritism 15 years ago. She is a founding member of Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center in Perrin, California, and the founder of Divine Light Spiritist Center in Nevada City, California as well. So help me to welcome our dearest sister, and love you, sister.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, so main question, do you want to heal? And it's, of course, a question that Jesus asked many of the people that were healed by him. And there was a reason why he asked that question, because we need to know whether we really truly want to heal. And sometimes we say yes, and we're not really in touch with the deeper layers. Do we really? So this is kind of like the overriding thread through the talk and after, for us to meditate on, to see, do we really want to heal? Because then that means there's some work to be done. And it's not in enough to take pills or shots. There's a lot more. And if we really truly say yes to the question, then let's get going. Let's understand a little bit more where disease comes from and what we can do. So I'm going to screen share here, and please let me know whether you can see it. Can you guys see the full screen?
Yes, we can see your screen here.
Perfect. So healing from dis-ease. So each illness, usually when we're healthy, we feel ease in our body, right? Our mind, our spirit. It's just all ducklings. We have them all in a row. But then when things, and that happens a lot here on planet Earth for us, become hairy, we feel a dis-ease. We don't feel at ease anymore. And that is really where the interesting work lies. That's when we go, okay, wait, what is going on? Where is it all coming from? So we're using two books as a base. One is Thought and Life by Emmanuel, and the other one is Healing and Self-Healing by Dr. Andre Moreira. I don't know whether you guys can see this book. I've worked it through many times. It's an amazing book. Warmly recommend it. He's a spiritist and a medical doctor. So we're using chapter 28, illness, in Thought and Life, and we're using the chapter on health, which is I think 15 or 16, in order to understand disease better. So Emmanuel, who wrote the book Thought and Life through Chico Xavier, says in the chapter on illness, of course, sickness is present mainly to purify the spirit. So right here we understand is the first puzzle piece for us. So when we get sick, and it may be a cold, maybe something really simple and light, but it may also be a major illness that we really have a hard time with, something that's more chronic. So let us understand there is a good reason for it. Any illness is here to help us. So it's not something to be hated, to have bad thoughts and feelings about, and it's in our way. No, it's really for us to open our hearts and minds to the state we find ourselves in. And of course, it's so much more important if it's a chronic illness, as opposed to a cold, which definitely passes quickly. But even there is a message. So a sickness is mainly here to purify the spirit. This message gets echoed in Evolution in Two Worlds by André Luis to Chico Xavier, where he says that through our way of life in the past, and that is not limited to this lifetime, we create through our thoughts and feelings, our words and actions, nodules. And these nodules, if they're not, our thoughts and feelings are not aligned with God, with the law of love, these nodules form in our perispirit, which is our subtle body. And we take those, they're like weak spots. They're just like nodules. It needs to be smooth, our perispirit, but it becomes nodulated, so to speak, if we have done a lot of wrong in the past, which we all have. And we bring them into this lifetime, and some of them are like seeds that's starting to sprout. And at that moment, we get sick. But this process is here to help us. to purify our spirit. So what can we do? So let us move on here. So there are four main causes for disease of the physical body. And this we take from chapter 15, entitled Health by Emmanuel in the book Thought and Life. He most and foremost speaks about our mind, our thinking. As the title of the book already helps us to understand, thought and life. Thought is life. Life stands as the mirror of our thoughts. That's how he starts off the book. So our mind is the single most important thing to become conscious of. We know that our inner transformation starts with getting to know ourselves better. Know thyself. Even the ancients already knew that that was the first pillar of our inner transformation, to get to know ourselves better. And that's easier said than done, because most of us go through life not really knowing what's going on behind our even mental facade. What helps us is the nightly review that St. Augustine recommends to us. That's what he did in his lifetime, as a starting point to start observing ourselves. What am I thinking primarily during the day? Do I have constructive thought patterns, or do I have destructive thought patterns? There is no gray middle ground. It's either constructive or destructive. It's obvious that all destructive thoughts that are not aligned with love create over time nodules in our perispirit, which then lead to disease. So the mind is number one. Second one is our feelings. And Emmanuel mentions feelings, particularly feelings of anger, feelings of despair, feelings of cruelty, and intemperance. So those are the four main ones he mentions. And we believe Emmanuel mentioned those for a reason. And the reason most likely is because we all suffer from those feelings. And of course, the feelings that we have are not detached from our thoughts. It's like a ping pong game. And we know that when we get to know ourselves better, something happens on the outside, and let's say anger erupts, and out of the anger, thoughts come. And sometimes it's the reverse. We have a thought, and out of that comes an emotion, comes a feeling. And nothing may even happen outside. It's just the thought that triggers a feeling of despair or cruelty. So let us not brush over those four that Emmanuel mentions, but really in our getting to know ourselves better, to work on our inner transformation, let us focus on anger, despair, cruelty, and intemperance. Thirdly, he speaks about the influence of incarnates and discarnates, and we must not underestimate those. We're never alone. We're always surrounded by a phalange of spirits, and we are never the victims of those spirits, ever. Why is that? It's because through our mind, our thinking, through our feelings, we have a specific vibratory tone that we emit. And what we emit, we attract. It's like a magnet. And right at that moment, we have incarnates and discarnates that swarm around us, matching our frequency. And at that moment, we could, if we were vibrating on the lower end of the scale, attract obsessors and all kinds of negative spirits who feed us information that's not constructive. So the influence of incarnates and discarnates must not be underestimated. We need to be aware of that. And then on the fourth level, and that's interesting, the level of 1, 2, 3, 4 is how he brings them to us, is the neglect of proper nutrition, which is interesting because many of us, when we get sick, we first look at our nutrition, or what can we take from the outside in and change it. It might also be medication. I'm not saying medication, there's no place for medication, but I'm saying this is not the number one number one item that Emmanuel and actually Andre Moreira in his book Healing and Self-Healing emphasizes. No, it starts with the mind and the feelings. Out of that come the influence of incarnates and discarnates who we attract. And then he says, also, we must not overlook nutrition, because obviously if we put poison into the physical part of our body, that has either immediately or over time a negative impact. And then we'll look at a solution. Please, if you have any questions or comments, please always bring them, or you can hold them to the end, either way. So here's the book Healing and Self-Healing by Andre Moreira. And he says, disease is thought in disharmony with God's law. So he's actually saying the same as Emmanuel, just in different words. So when we get sick, the reason is thought behind the illness, no matter what it is. Even if it's something contagious, we still, not everyone gets it. We allow it in our physical form, into our field. Disease is thought in disharmony with God's law. Now you may ask, okay, so what's God's law? So what is all that about? Well, we know that God's law is the law of love. It's when we have constructive, God-aligned thought and feeling patterns, when we surrender our will to God's will. The laws of God, the laws of love, we have inside of us. They're written in our conscience. Again, we need to work on getting to know ourselves better, to pause and tune in to see when we're overriding the laws of love, because we know, we just need to pay attention to it. We can also study them in the Spirit's book. The second half of the Spirit's book has God's laws. There's several chapters where Alan Kardec gifted us to bring them up into our conscious mind through questions and answers to help us understand what they are and what they entail. And we won't go into that right now, but I'm sure everyone has the Spirit's book. So again, thought leads to disease. And if we're in disharmony with love, with the laws of love, we will eventually get sick in the physical body. And of course, in the mind too. I mean, it's all the subtle bodies as well. Andre Moreira also says, when the attitude of human beings offends the laws of love, which is God's laws, and disconnects them from those laws, disease develops as an automatic mechanism of the organic physiology. It's automatic. It's like one step's law of cause and effect. It's like one step and the effect will happen. So when our attitude offends the laws of love, God's laws, disease develops automatically. So we're sick. Now we know, okay, there's something amiss. It's still very difficult, and I know it from my own experience, to connect the dots, but at least we have a scaffolding to hinge our work on. That's why the question, do you really want to heal? It's a lot of work. Because one thing is to take the symptoms away, that drugs can do. But drugs don't heal us. They just take symptoms away. The true healing happens when we do this kind of work, because it's linked to our thoughts and our feelings, and not just in this lifetime. Habits, thought habits too, we bring from previous incarnations. So then we go back to Thought and Life, chapter on health, when Emmanuel says, and now we're talking about number one, which is thought is life, right? About number one reason of getting sick, our thoughts. When we commit an injustice, Emmanuel says, our mind enters into a state of conflict. So if we do something that's destructive, our mind goes into a state of conflict. And we repent, he says, and that's very often or sometimes unconsciously. We may just like, okay, we're righteously inclined to do this and we're doing the right thing, even though it's destructive. We have God's laws written in our conscience. This doesn't go unnoticed, even within ourselves. So very important to note. And then the body becomes a filter. And that nodule we're forming by committing an injustice, being destructive in our thinking already, that's before speaking and acting, we form nodules. And the longer the patterns last, the bigger the nodules. We endure not only the center of repentance, which is our feelings, but also the vibrations of sorrow and accusation, both from our victim and those who sympathize with them. So the circle of impacted spirits in both realms is huge when we commit an injustice. Of course, what we put out hits us first. We are the first recipient of the injustice that we aim at someone or something else. Already there is faulty thinking at work, because we are the first recipient of everything we think and feel. And then the other person, let's say it's a person, an incarnate, gets affected, and then this incarnate's going to talk and send mental vibrations out, and in both realms there will be outrage, and all of that we have to digest as well. So it's huge, potentially huge, the circle of impact that we create, and that impact is most and foremost on us. And one very simple way of committing an injustice is slander and gossip. Slander and gossip. And of course, do we do that, right? So same chapter, Emmanuel says, that is why tuberculosis, cancer, leprosy, and ulcers are many times secondary phenomena caused by the imbalance of the mental reflexes of one's thoughts. So in other words, thought is life. The thoughts create these illnesses. They don't start in the body. They start in the nodules that we formed as a result of our thoughts and our feelings. Imbalances of our mental reflexes. And the current moment is definitely a clue. We could now say, oh, it happened in a past life. I have no idea. I have no recollection. So how can I address it? Well, we also learn in the Spirit's book that we don't need to know about our past lives. Our current patterns of thinking and feeling, speaking and acting show us who we are and who we were. So again, to know ourselves, know thyself, observation, nightly review, taking time out, being in nature, just connecting with ourselves to get to know ourselves better. So we can find the root cause and heal. And it really can be done. But it takes work. Do we really want to heal? Do we really want to heal? Then Emmanuel says, number 2. Now, what was number 2? So what this slide is referring to is the cause of feelings for disease. So we had the last 2 were about thoughts and how they cause disease. And now we're talking about the feelings, which was number 2 that Emmanuel mentions. He says feelings of anger, despair, cruelty, and intemperance create morbid zones in one's organic structure. They cause a state of dissonance in the cells, which neutralize nearly all their defense mechanism, immune system, and renders the weaker organs a fertile ground for pathological germs. This is exactly the mechanism that's taking place behind the scenes as a result of our destructive thoughts and feelings. And he gives us these 4 examples, and we're mentioning them again. Angry feelings, desperation, despair, cruelty, intemperance, overindulgence. They create morbid zones, and they cause our immune system to weaken and eventually collapse. Even cancer, even any degenerative illness is linked to our immune system. So we see here how just a simple thought that nobody can hear or see And then they come around and around and around for lifetimes. Well, eventually, they can literally kill us. And we think it's all out there, right? And we're pointing fingers at everything. And it's really, we know when we point a finger, three are pointing back at us. This is where the work lies. And that's not in a punitive way. It's not about beating ourselves up about who we are, what we're doing, what we've done. No, it's just it's like Sherlock Holmes showing us the path to healing. And the path is always this way, in deeper and deeper. And thank God we have Spiritism and these beautiful spirits and these wonderful mediums who are helping us, who are really giving us all the puzzle pieces. And now all we need to do is, if we really want to heal, work with them, put the puzzle together. It can take years, can even take lifetimes, but do we really want to do it? Or is it easier to pop a pill and just forget about the symptom? If we're lucky that our dis-ease is only symptomatic and not pushing us up against the wall, like in the case of cancer, for example, where a pill is not going to cut it anymore necessarily, right? So let us move on. So here again about feelings, Emmanuel in the same chapter says, after negative feelings are converted to mental vibrations, here we see the ping pong game, the connection of thoughts and feelings. Those negative feelings turn against us to disturb the complex function of the nervous cells in the skin, the digestive organs, the medulla, which is part of the brain, and the brain in general. And from there, we've seen in the previous slide, they change our cellular structure, create morbid zones, and render our immune system eventually null and void if it keeps going. So our negative feelings converted to mental vibrations. Feelings and thoughts, they cooperate with each other. It's a double whammy, working on our subtle body first, and then on our physical form next. So when an illness shows up in our physical form, it has lived already on the subtle level for a long time, because our physical form is the most dense part of us. And for a disease to manifest in the densest part of us, it takes a while. So as far as those feelings and thoughts are concerned, Emmanuel says in the chapter of illness, every strong feeling that reaches the body is like a hammer blow, those are his words, on a sensitive machine. Boom, 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 boom. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. And then we're surprised that we're depressed, that we have cancer, that we have heart disease, and that we get so-called contagious illnesses. Our immune system just can't, because it's like boom, boom, and we're doing it to ourselves. The good news is we can stop it. If we really want to heal, even if we're not sick, we can work on ourselves, because we know that the reason that we're here on planet Earth, it means we're not yet perfect. So there is stuff, and even if it's not manifesting right now, maybe because we're too young, we're still young, or because it's not time yet, the work can start right now. We don't hopefully wait until we manifest illness. So number 3, which was now another reason that Emmanuel mentions to us, and that is the impact of the spirits. And to that he says in the chapter on health, this condition is reinforced. So this condition he's talking about, illnesses, is reinforced by companions who are in or out of the flesh, who have an affinity with us, both in their outer behavior and inner qualities. They affect us directly or indirectly with negative suggestions, thereby leading us into deplorable symptoms of mental alienation and obsession. So by the nature of our thinking and the nature of our feelings, we attract companions, both incarnate as well as discarnate. And because of the affinity, frequency, vibratory match. It's a law. It's a scientific law. Like attracts like. And then they affect us directly or indirectly. We see it more obviously in the incarnates we attract. That's a more obvious reflection for us. But the host of spirits surrounding us may be bigger. And they're leading us into deplorable symptoms of mental alienation and obsession. And are we victims? No. We're doing it to ourselves. Everything that we don't like, we've done to ourselves. It's almost funny, isn't it? How we run these programs of thinking these things come from the outside while it's just the reverse. So, but that's the good news, because that means we can work on it. That we can control. Do we really want to get healed? We can work on this. Out there, we can't control it. So the Serenity Prayer tells us that we can't control our neighbor, right? But we can work on ourselves. So then, number 4, what was number 4 on the list of getting sick? It was the nutrition. And in the chapter on health, he says, on the other hand, neglect of proper nutrition can also lead the body into conditions of great suffering. Now, you don't have the chapter in front of you, but those of you who have the book, it would be nice to read those 2 chapters on illness and health at least, to get the whole chapter. But you can see on the choice of words, he's talking about all the mental feeling level of getting sick. And then he says in the second half of the chapter, on the other hand, neglect of proper nutrition can also lead the body into conditions of great suffering. So as you can see, it's the last item he mentions is nutrition. It's not number 1. It's not number 1. It's important, but it's not number 1. It can also lead. He doesn't say it does lead. He's very clear on thoughts and feelings leading to illness, on destructive thoughts and feelings leading to illness. And of course, but he is only saying nutrition can also lead. So he's a little bit more of a question mark behind it. So this is important for us to note. And of course, I also want to add on the other side, constructive feelings, right, and thoughts aligned with God's love, they don't get us sick, right? They bring the healing. So, but we're getting there. And here we are. Jesus gives us the recipe for our healing, and it happens in the book on illness, chapter 28 in Thought and Life. He says, and this is really important for us. This is really important. He's showing us the whole picture, and now we need to find the puzzle pieces, the remaining ones for our own situation. Let us cultivate understanding and patience, kindness and constructive tolerance wherever we go, which means 24/7, every second of our lives. As of this moment, we are asked by Jesus, he says, here, this is how you do it. Cultivate understanding. Emmanuel dedicates a whole chapter for us to understand understanding. And essentially, he says, understanding is the foundation of our inner renewal. It starts with practicing understanding in our lives, with everyone and everything. And then we know what patience is, to cultivate patience, to cultivate kindness. Those are the constructive thoughts and feelings. And then he speaks about the constructive tolerance. And he, again, dedicates a whole chapter to tolerance. If you guys want to get the book, those of you who don't have it, it's good to read it, to study it. So what is constructive tolerance? And here are some items. He says, it's continuous service in goodness. It's like, he says in a different chapter, he says, seek goodness, feel goodness, visualize goodness, mold goodness with all the resources at your hand, with everything we've got. We're supposed to seek, feel, visualize, and mold goodness 24/7, wherever we go. So it's continuous servicing goodness leads to our healing, but it's got to be continuous, starting with our thoughts, feelings. We're supposed to treat ignorance like a bleeding wound, not to rub salt into it. If we go to an ICU, we're very mindful, we're very gentle, we're very kind, we're very prayerful, quiet, tiptoeing through. But planet Earth at times is an ICU with our neighbors. But when it's not physical, the manifestation, we forget. And then we become vile, we become violent, we start gossiping, we start talking, we become destructive. So we're invited to treat ignorance like a bleeding wound, putting a balm on it through understanding, patience, kindness. This is all constructive tolerance. It's the foundation of true progress, Emmanuel says. So these are all quotes from the chapter on tolerance. He says constructive tolerance is the foundation of true progress. It's a virtue that inspires true brotherhood. It's a virtue that inspires true understanding. It conjures hope, patience, and letting go of all evil. You see how they all work together? The virtues. And it is to forgive. It's to forgive. The turning point in the Lord's Prayer is that we ask for forgiveness, but we can only be forgiven to the degree we forgive. And boy, do we need to be forgiven. And I hope we're all humble enough to know that and to acknowledge that to ourselves and everyone else around us. It's to forgive. That opens our hearts. All healing is a healing of the heart, because all our thoughts and feelings that are destructive is a hurting heart, comes from a hurting heart. We can only be destructive and inflict pain, our thoughts and feelings, when our hearts are hurting. I mean, I'm sure we've all been in love, and world is just rosy. Nobody can get to us. We're just like skipping and singing, and we're in love with the world when we're in love with someone, right? When we were younger. That's the state that hopefully we can work towards and reach without an outside reason, but just to be here, to understand, to practice the good. And of course, Jesus is always our most perfect example. The most perfect example of understanding, patience, kindness, and constructive tolerance. He didn't scold Peter when he abandoned him in the last moment. He didn't follow the sword. He didn't follow Judas and that SOB. What the heck did he do? Look how I had to suffer. No. What did he do? He worked on helping them. And he focused, when he saw them again, on the redemptive task ahead. So how can we keep going doing the good? Let's get to work. Let's do the good. Let's do the good. How can we forgive and keep doing the good? This is all coming right from Jesus for us as the recipe for healing. If we really want to heal, that's the practice. Emmanuel also says, only by paying the price of unceasing mental renewal for the good. Unceasing, that means all the time. I don't know whether we even know what that really means. This is hard work. By noble studies and constant service to mankind. Constant service to mankind. That means we're not charging. We don't want anything in return. We may even be kicked and not recognized, but we keep going. Will we be able to escape illness, thus making good use of the gifts of the Lord and avoiding the destructive mental reflexes that cause indirect suicide? So in other words, if we don't do this, we're actually committing indirect suicide. And from the spiritist lecture from Spirits on High, we know what that means on the other side and the consequences coming back. Books keep talking about it. We know it all. Are we really downloading it and making it our own in our daily every thought that comes up? So by paying the price of unceasing mental renewal through noble studies, constant service to mankind, by using the gifts that God has given us. What are the gifts that God has given us? We all have gifts. Are we using them, or are they laying on a high shelf getting dusty? What are the gifts God gave us to be of constant service to mankind? Charity begins where duty ends. So Andre Moreira says, as the final summary of his long book, Without Forgiveness, there is no health. So we are so fortunate, dear friends, that we have all this guidance towards healing and avoiding future illnesses. Because one thing is that we're undoing past wrongs and working through the nodules in a constructive way of really hitting the root cause, because that's the only reason when the nodule gets resolved is that we're active participants. Otherwise it somehow keeps going on some level. And for us, the other work is looking into the future from the current moment. What seeds am I planting in my garden of eternity to avoid future illness? Forgiveness. That without forgiveness, there is no health. If we really like to bottom line it, that summarizes it all. There is no salvation without charity. Forgiveness is part of charity. Spirits on High in the Spirits book define moral charity, which is the charity that's the most challenging for us on planet Earth, as benevolence towards all. That's like this unceasing goodwill, doing the good, being of service to mankind's goodwill towards all, benevolence towards all, seeing the good in everything and everyone. It's indulgence towards others' imperfections, and it's forgiveness towards others' trespasses, including forgiving ourselves, but not getting stuck there. Oh, now I'm such a bad person, because then that drips poison again into us. No, it's like what Jesus modeled to us when Peter abandoned him and Judas helped him be murdered, turned him in, looking at how can I be constructive, practicing the good. Jesus was tortured and nailed to the cross. If we can really feel that, what did he say? Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. He modeled to us. In his last moment, the last thing he said, forgive, let us forgive. We always say Jesus is our guide and model. Let us really make him our guide and model, which means we're practicing what he modeled to us. And it's not just through his words, it's through the nonverbal modeling that he gave us unbelievable lessons. Do we really want to be healed? Do we want to heal ourselves? Do we want to be healthy? We have the recipe for success right here. Thank you, dear friends.
Thank you, Sunshine. Thank you very much. It was a beautiful reminder how important it is that we really understand the root cause of what's going on, right? And I think that it's also important to remind that not always it always starts this life, but it can also start in previous life. That's why it is so important that we keep in harmony with whatever disease that comes into our mind, so then we can work for us to change that. So thank you, sister. And then the other thing that I always like to think is that um, we know what is our role into this mission of getting healed, right? So we know that we have our role, the spirituality have their role, and then it's not for us to put everything on the medications, on the drugs, and the science. We know that everybody work in favor, but if we do not do something to change, then we will keep, as Sunshine was saying, we will keep taking medications, and the next life we'll keep taking medications, and so on and so on. So it is important that we work together. So thank you, sister. Thank you very much. Any comments, any additions from anyone?
Thank you, Sunshine. Beautiful reminders. Just reiterations and new depth of what we should already know.
But that's the effort and repetition, right? As she was saying, like it's not necessarily new, but like until now we are reading and rereading Jesus's lessons because it's hard for us to really. I mean, it's easy-ish for us to understand, but it's really hard for us to apply because if we do not do the nightly review, boom, at some point we will see that we are doing something that I'm like, oops, I forgot about that. So the more that we hear, the better it is for us to reflect and then do the effort for us to apply them.
I also think it's important to teach, because some of us can be quite stubborn, and it can take just a little longer, to get our head right, So, and like, I think Robbie had mentioned it one time where he said it was the best way for him to learn something is by doing the presentation. It kind of gets more embedded in your cells, and it also, I think the idea is to think about these things before we react or even try to help change our thought pattern it by teaching and reading and doing these presentations. And what I love about our group is that we're beginners, and we do know that there are a lot of Brazilians who have were raised in this spiritual information and stuff, but we have the door open for us and those who don't have it perfectly to come and join. I love that about this group, and I love the fact that it's kind of like a spiritual kindergarten. It's okay to make the mistake and admit it and learn from your mistake, And so hearing it again and again is clearly what we need, from different perspectives, and people bring a different view of it, and it helps. It really does help.
And
Thank you.
this book is really wonderful. Self-Healing and Healing by Andre Moreira. Wonderful book. Really very in depth and just really good read.
Very interesting. Thank you, sister.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
All right, so let us take 3 minutes break. It's 10:57 here in California. So we resume 11 for our second part. Please make sure that you bring your water and you write down the names of those who you wish to bring for vibration. See you in 3.